Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Art of Being a Woman. I'm your host, Courtney, and today we are discussing the art of protecting your energy. Protecting your energy is so crucial and it's so important for each and every one of us to do, especially us women, because naturally we are so giving of our energy without realizing. Every time we feel for someone else, every time we listen to someone else share their feelings and their experiences, and we give our attention to other people, we are giving our energy away without realizing it. Now, giving our energy away is not always a bad thing. In fact, it's a beautiful thing. We pour into the cups of those we love, whether it's our friends, our family, our loved ones, and it really makes people feel supported, appreciated, loved, and all that good stuff. The problem is, things get a little tricky when we don't know where to draw the line with giving our energy away. I know that for me personally, this is something that I had to learn through a lot of trial and error. I am someone that naturally loves to communicate with my loved ones for hours even, and time truly flies by for me. What I don't realize is that I end up paying the price for it when it's time for me to disconnect from other people and really step back and recharge, because I've noticed that after having long days of pouring my energy into those around me, I come home and I feel so depleted. I feel like I have no energy left to really do the things that light me up because I am drained. All my excitement, all my optimism, all my happiness, I spent giving it to those around me. Now, I never regret giving my energy out to those that I love. And I think that's why for a long time, protecting my energy was always so confusing to me, because I knew it wasn't a bad thing to give my energy out to other people. I was just getting very frustrated that I had no energy left for myself. And I didn't know when it was best to choose myself over other people. I remember when I first started really taking accountability in my life and for how I felt and how I was thinking about my circumstances, I realized that me feeling burnt out after socializing, after pouring into those that I loved, was something that I needed to take responsibility for and I needed to get to the bottom of, or I was going to end up building resentment towards myself because I was never allowing myself to put my needs above other people. I truly remember my breaking point in this area of my life. It was a day where I started off in a great mood, and I usually do start off in a great mood. I love to journal, I love to express gratitude, I say a little prayer, and it just sets me up for a good, positive day. Now, right after that was done, I started getting calls and messages from my family members, my friends, all pulling me in different directions. Some needed my help, some needed my attention, and I love to be that person. I love to be the friend that you call when you're in need, and I love to be the family member that you can lean on. But what happens is I tend to forget the things that I had set out for my own day, and when the day comes to an end, I realize that I didn't get anything that I wanted to do done, and that's nobody's fault but my own. So I remember halfway through that day where I was being pulled in many different directions. Initially, I didn't feel bad. I was happy to talk to my friends. I was happy to do favors for everyone because they truly needed me due to their own circumstances that were limiting them. And I luckily had a flexible schedule, meaning nothing bad would happen if the things that I didn't do didn't get done that day. But I remember I got off the phone with my friend who I was talking to for a couple of hours, and I just felt so drained. And it was only like 1 or 2 p.m. And it made me so sad because I knew that I didn't even start anything I wanted to do. And yet I'm exhausted. When I realized that, I started to cry. And that's kind of dramatic for me personally because I am not a crier. I'm usually very logical with my emotions, which is not always the best. It's really important to allow yourself to feel your feelings. And at that time, I wasn't that good at doing that. So I remember I started to cry. And then I started to realize that I was crying and nothing crazy had happened to me. And then I really started to ask myself, why is something that seems so small making me so sad? And I realized it's because I always do this to myself. And I've been doing this to myself my whole entire life. I've been doing this to myself for 20 plus years. I've been putting my needs last, acting as if they don't matter. I don't know if I just assumed that there would just be a day where nobody would need me or want me around so that I would be able to focus on myself. But that day never happened because I have always been that helpful person. I was pretty much everyone's go-to when they needed help and when they were in need. After that day, when I got so emotional about everything, I really prayed to God. And I never really was someone that would pray to God because I grew up in a very religious, orthodox environment, and everyone has their own experiences with religion. Some people love it, some people don't. Me personally, I didn't like that I didn't have a choice in the religion. I was expected to follow a lot of rules without really questioning why I was following these rules, and prayer was one of them. I was always expected to pray for at least an hour a day, and that just didn't sit right with me. I assumed that if I didn't feel like doing it, how could it possibly count? Because my heart wasn't in it. So I decided from a young age that even when I was expected to pray, I wouldn't really do it. I would just fake it. As I got older, and as I started really reflecting on my life and noticing how no matter how tough life may have looked, I've always made it through. I really was able to see God's hand in my life. And I know that if you're not a religious person, that can sound cringe a bit because there is no proof, honestly, and that's just a fact. There's no proof of God. But when you allow yourself to really look at your life from an objective point of view, you will realize that there are some things that you have just been through that had it not been for something outside of you pushing you through it, you might not have made it. I'm not sure where all of that is coming from, but I feel that it's important to share that part of my life, and hopefully it helps someone that's listening to this episode. I prayed to God in that moment, and I asked him to give me the strength and to give me the clarity to know how to protect my energy. And it was so funny because right after I asked that question, my friend called me back, the one that I was on the phone with for hours. And I was like, wow, I feel like this is a test. Maybe I shouldn't answer it because I'm still crying. And for some reason, I decided to answer the phone because this is a friend that I can always be very vulnerable with. And I answered the phone. She heard that I was crying and she asked me what was wrong. And she started to cry too, actually, which was like a moment. I didn't expect that. But she ended up confiding in me that she feels the same way in her life at times. And that was really comforting to be heard in a vulnerable moment in my life and know that I'm not alone in that feeling, not knowing when to stop extending my energy, and that feeling of guilt when I decide to pull back and keep my energy to myself. After that day, things didn't magically change, but I definitely became more conscious of how often I put my needs on the side for the sake of other people, and I became more aware of how I was really giving my energy away without checking in with myself to see how I'm feeling at the moment. And through this experience, I was able to write this topic that I posted on Instagram and on Threads. Now, this topic performed really well on Instagram, and I'm not surprised. I feel like as women, we are expected to be available energetically to the people around us, even if nobody tells that to us. And I'm just very grateful that I was able to put this out into the world so other women can also feel seen and heard the way that I felt seen and heard by my friend. I think that when we realize we're not alone in what we're feeling, it gives us the strength to really take matters into our own hands and do better for ourselves. The 4 steps that we're going to get into today are the following. Step 1, know what your energy feels like when it's clean. Step 2, don't talk yourself out of what you feel. Step 3, pay attention to the moment your energy starts to dip. And step 4, don't wait until you're drained to protect your energy. Let's get straight into step 1. Know what your energy feels like when it's clean. We know when our energy is clean when we feel like our battery is full. We have all the energy in the world to conquer our day and get things done. Even the things that we're not super excited to get done, we know that accomplishing it will make us feel good and make us feel productive. So we're ready. We're ready for our day. Now, there's some days when we wake up and we don't feel this way from the beginning. We don't have a good night's sleep, or we wake up with something on our mind, perhaps something is stressing us out. And so already we're waking up and we're not at 100%. We're at like 80, 75. It varies. And this is something that as women, we need to be very honest with ourselves about, because we're emotional beings. Men are emotional too. I know that. But I know that women, we lead with our emotions, and it's intentional that we lead with our emotions. So we must respect our energy constantly, or it's going to end up working against us. So the first thing that I would advise everyone to do every single morning is acknowledge what your battery percentage is for the day. Energetically, when you wake up and you're in such a great mood, you feel like tackling 10 things on your to-do list, you can consider that you feeling energetically fully charged. And the days when you wake up and you're feeling like you don't want to get out of bed, but you know that you have responsibilities, you can consider that 50%. There's no right or wrong. You shouldn't expect yourself to be at a certain level ever. Just respect where you're at. Sometimes you can get 10 hours of sleep and you still wake up at 50%. Respect it, because our whole entire day and our mood depends on it. If we wake up and we're at 50% and we convince ourselves that we don't want to be at 50%, we want to be at 100%. So we start pushing ourselves to tackle 10 things instead of 5. And on top of that, we start raising the bar and we tell ourselves to do some extra things that we don't usually do, whether it's do a complicated hairstyle or do our makeup for a little bit longer than usual. We're setting ourselves up for disappointment because our energy is already limited, and we are making it a lot easier for ourselves to burn out quicker, all on our own. As we know, as women, other people are going to ask us for our energy too throughout the day. And I'm not saying that because you woke up feeling like you had 50% energy that you are unable to help anybody else, but know that your capacity to help other people is limited. So be very careful with who you're helping and when. Sometimes timing matters. In the morning, if someone asks for your help, perhaps that's better because you're at 50%, but perhaps you're at the end of your day and you're at 15%. That's when you know that you need to put your phone on Do Not Disturb. You need to disconnect from the world as best as you can and call it a night. Don't wait until your battery gets to 0. That means you burnt yourself out. Think about your phone. For the most part, we don't let our phones completely die. If we do, it's a little chaotic because then you have to wait some time until you recharge. And that's pretty much what burnout is. You can either be ahead of the game and recharge yourself more frequently so that you never feel like you're running on empty, or you can run yourself into the ground and then need a whole weekend to recover and isolate, which I know I've done in the past because I've been so burnt out by my work week. When we do this, when we start to become aware of our energy levels throughout the day, we shift from life just affecting us and our emotions almost controlling us, and we start to become more in control of them. We start to become more ahead of the game with our emotions. We can start to predict how we're going to feel, and we start to get a better sense of how to keep ourselves in a good mood. Step 2, don't talk yourself out of what you feel. This is something that has been very hard for me because I am someone that loves to think my emotions through. I never just feel them. I always think about them first. I think about if my feelings make sense, which feelings never have to make sense. They just are. And they're always signs of our soul and how we feel deep down. whether we want to admit it or not. So if we wake up and we're sad and we don't know why, that can be annoying when we have a lot of things to get done, but we must respect it. There's always a reason why we feel how we feel, even if it's not obvious to us. And when we ignore these feelings, even if they're subtle, when we ignore them, it doesn't disappear, it just ends up getting bottled up. And when our emotions get bottled up, eventually the bottle will fill up and it will overflow, and you will have an emotional outburst at a very unexpected time. For example, I started this episode and I explained that I cried after I got off the phone with my friend. Technically, nothing sad happened in that moment. It was just that accumulation of all that sadness that I was suppressing after feeling burnt out that came to the surface. Luckily, I was open enough to receive the answer for why I was sad in that moment. But sometimes it's not that obvious. Sometimes we just cry randomly and we don't know why, or we get angry and we don't know why. And the emotion is not proportionate to the circumstance. And that's because we've been bottling it in. So it's very, very important that we don't talk ourselves out of what we feel, because then we accidentally explode on the wrong people and in the wrong moments. Now, I'm also a big believer in everything happens for a reason, and there's no real mistakes in life, meaning if something has happened already, it was meant to happen. So if you have an emotional outburst, if you cry randomly, if you get angry randomly, of course, it will affect the people around us at times. But again, we're women. If our emotions surface, that means we've reached our capacity to hold it in. And our soul, God, the universe, is doing us a favor and releasing it and just allowing it to clear out, because we cannot go on our whole lives avoiding our feelings. It eats us up inside and it ends up making us very sad. Sometimes we think that the feelings that we have are because of other people, whether we tell ourselves that we feel really sad because people take advantage of us, we feel very angry because people mistreat us. But the truth is, and this is a philosophical belief, our emotions have already existed before they came to the surface. So when someone mistreats us and we respond with anger, we're yelling and we are getting disrespectful, we were already angry prior to that happening. It was the other person giving us an opportunity to unleash that anger. And the same thing goes with sadness. We can have a conversation with someone and they say something that hurts our feelings, and we can start to cry. And we will think, I'm only crying and I'm only sad because they said something hurtful. But the truth is that sadness already existed within us. That doesn't mean that people don't do hurtful things, and that doesn't mean that people don't try to trigger us. Not at all. But when we get to a point where we're very aware of our feelings and we respect them, other people triggering us doesn't provoke such reactive responses from us. And this can be hard, because the people that know us very well know exactly how to trigger us. That doesn't mean that they do it intentionally. Sometimes they do, but we always have the power in our response. So if we're feeling angry, then we need to give ourselves a break, and we need to give ourselves space, and we need to allow ourselves to journal out our thoughts. What exactly is making us so angry? And write it out until you can't think of anything else to write. Same thing with sadness. When you're feeling so sad, instead of calling everyone up and having other people try to help you figure out what's going on in your life, journal about it. Connect with yourself and get to the root of what's making you so sad until you have nothing else left to say. And this works every single time. I guarantee it. It's like a form of self-therapy. The thing is, though, you have to do something with the information that you gained from yourself. It's not enough to just know what's making you sad. It's not enough to just know what's making you angry. What are you going to do in the future so that you don't get to this point? How are you going to respect your exhaustion, your sadness, your anger in the future? Step 3. Pay attention to the moment your energy starts to dip. The truth is, energy rarely drops to zero at once. It's always gradual, and that's normal. We start our day off, we make breakfast, we get dressed, we go to work. Perhaps we had some issues at work, so that took more of our energy than usual, and the drive home, perhaps there's traffic, also depletes our energy. You name it, fill in the blanks. We all have our daily routine, and things tend to come up outside of that as well. Now, instead of waiting until we get to that point where we're just drained and we're ready to just get into bed, we need to become aware throughout the day of when it's slowly starting to drop. You could do this by allowing yourself to have check-in moments. You can center it around different times, whether it's every 2 hours, you check in with yourself and update yourself on what your energy level is. Or what I started doing on my work days, I would set alarms on my phone, because sometimes when I'm just in the flow of my day, I really lose track of time. You can label your alarms. You can call it energy check-in, whatever you want to call it, and that will ground you. It will remind you to pause, be present with yourself in that moment, because we get lost into the things that we're doing often, and continue about your day. Whenever I do this, I feel a lot more calm because I'm a lot more aware of how I'm feeling more often throughout the day, and not just at the end of my day when I realize, wow, it was a long day. When I do this, I'm able to know when I need to take a break from pouring my energy into other people and when I have the bandwidth to give it away. Some days when I'm heading home from work, I'll call a friend, I'll call a family member, catch up with them, see how they're doing, because I feel that I have a lot of energy. But then there's moments when I don't feel like I have any energy, and someone will call me and I'll just let it ring out. That used to be very hard for me to do, but it gets to a point where it becomes a priority. You have to get to a point where your own well-being and your sanity truly is your priority. And when we are running ourselves into the ground, we're not prioritizing our well-being. Step 4, don't wait until you're drained to protect your energy. This is kind of similar to what we just discussed about paying attention, but I will focus on what to do when you do get to that point. You realize that you are drained, and perhaps you snapped on someone, perhaps you're just not in your nicest mood. People will ask you for favors and you just don't even feel like sugarcoating it. You just say no, you don't want to, and perhaps that makes you feel bad inside. Or perhaps you're angry. Perhaps you're angry at the world. Perhaps you're angry at just how the day unfolded. You can blame it on whatever you want. When you get to that point, it's very important to journal and reconnect with yourself, because like we mentioned in step 2, these feelings existed prior to this day unfolding. If you're at the end of your day and you feel miserable, you feel burnt out, you feel angry, get to the root of it and try to figure out what you could do differently in the future to avoid this from happening. Now, we also have to be very understanding of ourselves, because life is truly unpredictable. We can try to plan as much as we want, but then things come up. There's this quote that I always heard growing up: people plan and God laughs. Because it's true. We can convince ourselves that we are in control of our lives, but at the end of the day, anything can be thrown our way. And if you're a parent, you know this. You have children. Things come up with your children all the time, unexpectedly, and it's just a part of life. So on those days where you do get drained and you didn't expect it, perhaps you woke up in the best mood, or perhaps you did everything that you planned to do to protect your energy, and it just didn't work out. That's okay. That's life. What's most important in those moments is that you honor your feelings and act accordingly. So on a day like that, limit your interactions with other people. Don't start answering the phone. Don't add on tasks for yourself to do. If you originally planned to go to the supermarket, but it's not an emergency, don't go that day. If your friends texted you, family texted you, but it's not an emergency, don't respond that day. They'll be fine. Everyone will be fine. The house will still have food, so on and so forth. You really have to work with yourself and show yourself that you respect how you feel, and what you care about most is your energy levels and that you feel restored. Allow yourself to restore your energy. Go to sleep early and allow yourself to take the time you need to build your energy back up. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. I really enjoyed recording it and discussing this topic. I enjoy sharing my personal experiences with the topics that I discuss, because everything that I discuss is something that I have gone through, I'm still going through, and I know I'm not alone in these experiences. So if you related to this episode and you enjoyed this discussion, please rate this podcast. It would mean so much to me. And if there's a friend or a family member that you think would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Thank you so much for listening. I love you so much. I hope you have an amazing week. Until next time, bye for now.